Hidden in the depths of Quebec's underworld are legends that continue to send shivers down the spines of even the toughest people. But who are those names that continue to frighten people? Join us as we peel back the layers of the secret world of cruelty and the meanest Hells Angels bikers to ever grace Canadian land. Maurice Boucher's picture shows a man with a shining smile that hides the reality of a merciless killer with no empathy. He was born into poverty in 1953, the eighth child of a cruel alcoholic father and a mother who struggled to keep her family together. Boucher joined the SS, a white supremacist motorcycle gang, in the early 1980s. The group committed a number of crimes, and the name Maurice Boucher began to appear on police radar, but the officers dismissed him as nothing special, just another outlaw biker. The group's main activity appears to have been beating up non-white immigrants until they started peddling drugs. Boucher's membership in the SS qualified him to join the Hells Angels, which were aiming to expand beyond Quebec into the rest of Canada. According to the Montreal Gazette, on May 1st of 1987, Boucher was welcomed into the Hells Angels as a full-patch member of its Montreal chapter, and by 1994 he had earned a reputation as a fierce competitor among Montreal drug dealers. 5 Hells Angels were slain in what became known as the Lennoxville Massacre due to internal squabbles. Boucher stepped into the leadership void and began rebuilding the gang. He founded the Nomads, a new faction inside the Angels, to ensure that no undercover police officials could penetrate the club. Aspirant Nomad members had to commit murder. On July 13th of 1994, Pierre Daoust, 34, was in his motorcycle shop working on his Harley. 3 guys approached Daoust and shot him 16 times. Daoust was a Hells Angels member, and his assassins were members of a rival group known as the Rock Machine. The Rock Machine, led by Frederick Foucher, was delivering a message to Maurice Boucher, who had insisted that all drug traffickers purchase their drugs from his Hells Angels. The assassination of Daoust was the first volley in a conflict between motorcycle gangs in Quebec. To confront Boucher and his authoritarian attitude, the Rock Machine established an alliance with other gangs, and so started a struggle that lasted until 2001 and claimed the lives of more than 160 individuals. Perhaps their families wept for the deceased bikers, but the wider public did not. However, some innocent persons were murdered in the crossfire. The outrage culminated when 11-year-old Daniel Desrochers was killed by a flying car bomb debris. The Hells Angels outgunned the Rock Machine's alliance. However, both sides preferred explosives. In one instance, a vehicle laden with dynamite was parked outside Boucher's favorite restaurant. When Boucher arrived, the idea was to explode it remotely, but a parking enforcement officer saw the illegally parked vehicle and had it taken away. Boucher and maybe dozens of restaurant customers came dangerously close to death. While fighting the Rock Machine, Boucher devised a scheme to undermine the Quebec legal system. Diane Levine and Pierre Rondeau, 2 prison guards, were killed on his orders. They were random victims whose killings were intended to intimidate anyone considering testifying against the gang. The Rock Machine's alliance had been weakened by the murder of several of its members by 1999, and it requested assistance from the Bandidos. With a large U.S. biker gang like the Bandidos moving in, Boucher became interested in a ceasefire. There was a truce, but it didn't last long and it didn't really matter. The cops were prepared to take action. Early attempts to dismantle the motorcycle gangs were ineffective, in part because of Quebec's legal system was famously corrupt. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Ontario Provincial Police, and the Sûreté de Québec formed a combined task team. A few informers struck bargains for leniency in exchange for leaking information on the motorcyclist. On March the 28th of 2001, a huge police sweep occurred. 2,000 cops were dispatched to apprehend 139 Hells Angels and their allies. Among those detained was Maurice Boucher. Following a lengthy trial, 9 motorcyclists were sentenced to severe jail terms for offenses such as murder, conspiracy, gangsterism, and drug trafficking. Boucher was found guilty of murder conspiracy in the case of the 2 prison guards and sentenced to life in prison with no chance of release for 25 years. But apparently, the Hells Angels executives in the United States were apparently furious with Boucher for drawing unfavorable attention to the group. A contract was put out for his execution in jail. He was also a target of the Indian Posse, an Aboriginal street gang that had a feud with the Zigzag Crew, a Hells Angels puppet gang. On the orders of Danny Wolf, the head of the Indian Posse, a member of that gang injured Boucher in a knife assault in October of 2010. 5 years later, Boucher and another guy were accused of attempting to kill a fellow inmate. But there he hit his last days when he was diagnosed with cancer in 2015. In July of 2022, it wasn't his criminal enemies who killed him, but cancer when he was 69. This is Yves Apache Trudeau. As a member of a motorcycle club, he gained notoriety for his extensive history of violence. Trudeau's criminal activities began in 1968 when he joined the Popeyes Motor Club in East End, Montreal. The resulting violence solidified Quebec's reputation as one of North America's most perilous places for organized crime operations. The relentless violence in Quebec attracted the attention of motorcycle gangs in the United States, including the Outlaws based in Chicago and the Hells Angels based in California, both seeking international expansion. In 1977, the Outlaws recruited 5 out of 10 chapters of Satan's Choice Gang, including the Montreal chapter. During the 1970s and early 1980s, Trudeau was a member of the Hells Angels in Montreal, earning nicknames like Apache and the Mad Bumper for his ruthless acts. He targeted his victims at their home and rigged their vehicles with bombs. As the Hells Angels Montreal chapter grew in size, a second chapter was formed in the Montreal area, consisting largely of former Popeyes members. Trudeau's reputation as a killer became so established that he started taking contracts outside the Hells Angels. In February of 1980, he executed the grandmother of a former Hells Angel whom he suspected of cooperating with law enforcement, along with his suspected informant and his wife. Trudeau expanded his murder activities by carrying out multiple killings on behalf of the West End Gang, an Irish-dominated criminal organization operating in Montreal's English-speaking Southwest. In 1982, Trudeau was coerced by a man named Ryan to participate in the murders of 3 Hells Angels members and one of their girlfriends. Ryan had previously collaborated with Trudeau, Huey McGurnigan, a gang member whom Ryan believed had cheated him out of drug money. On October the 27th of 1981, Trudeau detonated a bomb underneath McGurnigan's car, resulting in his death and causing widespread damage in an upscale Westmount Park neighborhood. On November the 13th, 1984, Ryan was killed by Paul April and an accomplice. During Ryan's funeral, Trudeau was approached by Alan the Weasel Ross, who arranged for retribution. In the early hours of Sunday, November the 25th, Michael Blass, a Trudeau associate, bombed April's apartment, causing the deaths of the 4 men inside and damaging several other units in the Concordia University student housing complex. While in March of 1985, the Sorrel Mother chapter held a secret meeting, declaring the Laval chapter to be in bad standing and creating a hit list of North chapter members to be executed. That's all for the video. Thank you for watching. We hope this video has inspired you to delve deeper into the world of crime. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.